the Bible study series here. I'm going to try to get through the descendants of Japheth, Ham, and Shem, then to chapter 11, the Tower of Babel, and then chapter 12. There are just a multitude of descendants here, and I have some resources and information based off a little bit of research that I've done on the connection to some of these descendants to today. But I think it's such a loaded topic and discussion where I want to do a little bit more research before I just put things out there from the internet. Like I want to do a little bit more reading. I do have a little bit of just from what history has, evidence of from just the consequences of the curse of Ham on African Americans. So I can definitely go over some data that I have from that. But I'm going to start here in Genesis 10. So the descendants of Japheth. The descendants of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras. The descendants, I might butcher some of these names, so give me a little bit of grace here. The descendants of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Rephath, and Togarmah. The descendants of Javan were Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Rodanim. Their descendants became the seafaring peoples that spread out to various lands, each identified by its own language, clan, and national identity. Then you have the descendants of Ham. The descendants of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. The descendants of Cush were Seba, Havilah, Sapta, Ramah, and Saptika. The descendants of Ramah were Sheba and Dedan. Cush was also the ancestor of Nimrod, who was the first heroic warrior on earth. Since he was the greatest hunter in the world, his name became proverbial. People would say, "This man is like Nimrod, the greatest hunter in the world." He built his kingdom in the land of Babylonia, with the cities of Babylon, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh. From there, he expanded his territory to Assyria, building the cities of Nineveh. Nineveh. I feel like I should be getting this correctly, but I'm gonna say Nineveh. Then you have Rehoboth, Ir, Calah, and Rezin, the great city located between Nineveh and Calah. Then you have Mizraim, was the ancestor of the Ludites, Anamites, Lehabites, Naphtuhites, the Pathrusites, Chalcidites, and the Caphtorites, from whom the Philistines came. Canaan's oldest son was Sidon, the ancestor of the Sidonians. Sidon. Of the Sidonians, Canaan was also the ancestor of the Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, Hivites, Archites, Sinites, the Arvadites, Zimrites, and Hamathites. The Canaanite clans eventually spread out, and the territory of Canaan extended from Sidon in the north to Gerar and Gaza in the south, and east as far as Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim near Lasha. These were the descendants of Ham, identified by clan, language, territory, and national identity. The descendants of Shem, sons were also born to Shem, the older brother of Japheth. Shem was the ancestor of all the descendants of Eber. The descendants of Shem were Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. The descendants of Aram were Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. Arphaxad was the father of Shelah, and Shelah was the father of Eber. Eber had two sons. The first was named Peleg, which means division. Peleg, which means division. For during his lifetime, the people of the world were divided into different language groups. His brother name was Joktan. Joktan was the ancestor of Almodad, Sheleph, Hazarmaveth, Jerah, Hadaram, Uzal, Dikla, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were descendants of, I feel like I'm pronouncing that wrong, Joktan. The territory they occupied extended from Misha all the way to Sifar in the eastern mountains. These were the descendants of Shem, identified by clan, language, territory, and national identity. These are the clans that descended from Noah's sons, arranged by nation according to their lines of descent. All the nations of the earth descended from these clans after the great flood. There's so much information and so much that can be said around these descendants, where they land today. It's going to take me some time to really do some research as much as I can. But I do have a little bit of research around the descendants. So, chapter 11, the Tower of Babel. At one time, all the people of the world spoke the same language and under the same words. As the people migrated to the east, they found a plain in the land of Babylonia and settled there. They began saying to each other, "Let's make bricks and harden them with fire." In this region, bricks were used instead of stone, and tar was used for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let's build a great city for ourselves with a tower that reaches into the sky. This will make us famous and keep us from being scattered all over the world." But the Lord came down to look at the city and the tower the people were building. "Look," he said, "the people are united, and they all speak the same language. After this, nothing they set out to do will be impossible for them. Come, let's go down and confuse the people with different languages. Then they won't be able to understand each other." So there's a lot to say here that I'll have to do some research on and unpack. In that way, the Lord scattered them all over the world, and they stopped building the city. This is why the city was called Babel, because that is where the Lord confused the people with different languages. In this way, he scattered them all over the world. The line of descent from Shem to Abram. This is the account of Shem's family. 2 years after the great flood, when Shem was 100 years old, he became the father of Arphaxad. After the birth of Arphaxad, Shem lived another 500 years and had other sons and daughters. When Arphaxad was 35 years old, he became the father of Shelah. After the birth of Shelah, Arphaxad lived another 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Shelah was 30 years old, he became the father of Eber. After the birth of Eber, Shelah lived another 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Eber was 34 years old, he became the father of Peleg. Peleg. I feel like it says Peleg. I'll look that up. After the birth of Peleg, Eber lived another 430 years and had other sons and daughters. When Peleg was 30 years old, he became the father of Reu. After the birth of Reu, Peleg lived another 209 years and had other sons and daughters. When Reu was 32 years old, he became the father of Seruj. After the birth of Seruj, Reu lived another 207 years and had other sons and daughters. When Seruj was 30 years old, he became the father of Nahor. After the birth of Nahor, I want to say, is it Seruj or Serug, lived another 200 years and had other sons and daughters. When Nahor was 29 years old, he became the father of Terah. After the birth of Terah, Nahor lived another 119 years and had other sons and daughters. After Terah was 70 years old, he became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Terah. So we have here the father of Abraham. This is the account of Terah's family. Terah was the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran was the father of Lot. So we have Lot's father here as Haran. But Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans in the land of his birth, while his father Terah was still living. So we have here Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans, the land of his birth. So he died in his birthplace where his father was still living. Meanwhile, Abram and Nahor both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. Milcah. Milcah and her sister Iscah were daughters of Nahor's brother Haran. But Sarai was unable to become pregnant and had no children. One day, Terah took his son Abram, his daughter in law Sarai, his son Abram's wife, and his grandson Lot, his son Haran's child, and moved away from Ur of the Chaldeans. He was headed for the land of Canaan, but they stopped at Haran and settled there. Terah lived for 205 years and died while still in Haran. So the call of Abram, this is chapter 12. The Lord had said to Abram, leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. All the families on earth will be blessed through you. So Abram departed as the Lord had instructed, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all his wealth, his livestock, and all the people he had taken into his household at Haran, and headed for the land of Canaan. When they arrived in Canaan, Abram traveled through the land as far as Shechem. I want to say CH is Shechem. There he set up camp beside the oak of Moriah. At that time, the area was inhabited by Canaanites. Shechem. I want to say that's how it's pronounced. Shechem, Moriah. Then the Lord appeared to Abraham and said, I will give this land to your descendants. And Abram built an altar there and dedicated it to the Lord who had appeared to him. After that, Abram traveled south and set up camp in the hill country, where Bethel to the west, with Bethel to the west, and Ai to the east. Ai to the east. I'm curious on how that's pronounced. One thing about Abram, the Lord gave him a commandment. Abram ain't arguing. Abram's like, the Lord is like, leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. All the families of the earth will be blessed through you. Abram's like, we got to pick up our stuff and we have to go. No argument, no debate. This is why he is reverenced as, God bless him too, as the father of faith, because he acted on, they say, I love this acronym for faith, forward action in trusting him, right? And trusting the Most High. Abram is like, this is what the Lord said, let's go. And that's essentially our model for faith today as believers. Abram departed as the Lord had instructed, and Lot went with him. So I'm at chapter 12, verse 8. After that, Abram traveled south and set up camp in the hill country with Bethel to the west and Ai. Is that Ai? To the east. I'm gonna have to look that up online and see how they pronounce that. There he built another altar and dedicated it to the Lord, and he worshiped the Lord. Then Abram continued traveling south by stages toward Negev. At that time, a severe famine struck the land of Canaan, forcing Abram to go down to Egypt, where he lived as a foreigner. As he was approaching the border of Egypt, Abram said to his wife Sarai, look, you are a very beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Let's kill him. Then we can have her. So please tell them you are my sister. Then they will spare my life and treat me well because of their interest in you. And sure enough, when Abram arrived in Egypt, everyone noticed Sarai's beauty. When the palace officials saw her, they sang her praises to Pharaoh, their king, and Sarai was taken into his palace. Then Pharaoh gave Abram many gifts because of her: sheep, goats, cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. But the Lord sent terrible plagues upon Pharaoh and his household because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh summoned Abram and accused him sharply. What have you done to me? He demanded. Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say, she is my sister, and allow me to take her as my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and get out of here. Pharaoh ordered some of his men to escort them, and he sent Abram out of the country along with his wife and all his possessions. He's like, man, you're too fine. They're going to come up here. They're going to check you out, and I'm done. Telling you my sister. All right. God is like, we're not having that. God will protect you. He'll shield you. He'll shield you. I'm at 13. So Abram left Egypt and traveled north into the Negev along with his wife and Lot and all that they owned. Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. From the Negev, they continued traveling by stages toward Bethel, and they pitched their tents between Bethel and Ai, where they had camped before. This was the same place where Abram had built the altar, and there he would worship the Lord again. Lot, who was traveling with Abram, had also become very wealthy, with flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle, and many tents. But the land could not support both Abram and Lot with all their flocks and herds living so close together. So disputes broke out between the herdsmen of Abram and Lot. At that time, Canaanites and Perizzites were also living in the land. Finally, Abram said to Lot, let's not allow this conflict to come between us or our herdsmen. After all, we are close relatives. The whole countryside is open to you. Take your choice of any selection of the land you want, and we will separate. If you want the land to the left, then I'll take the land on the right. If you prefer the land on the right, then I'll go to the left. Lot took a long look at the fertile plains of the Jordan. So here you have Lot. He's just looking at, where is it? Where is it popping at? Where is it more fertile? He's kind of being driven by his five senses, sort of like that carnality here. He's looking at where some of the most fertile plains, where is it more richer in resources? I'm going to take that, right? So it says here, Lot took a long look at the fertile plains of the Jordan Valley in the direction of Zoar. The whole area was well watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord or the beautiful land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot chose for himself the whole Jordan Valley to the east of them. He went there with his flocks and servants and parted company with his uncle Abram. So Abram settled in the land of Canaan, and Lot moved his tents to a place near Sodom and settled among the cities of the plain. Gee golly, right? He's settling up, doesn't even know what's ahead of him, right? In Sodom, this land where you already have a lot of corruption. That's sort of like the ground is swelling with. And that just goes to show you, like, there's a verse in scripture that says there's a way that seems right to man, but the end therefore is death, right? So here Lot is thinking he's picking the choice parts of the land, right? I'm gonna go based off of what my five senses, are telling me. And so much came from that decision. So Abram settled in the land of Canaan, and Lot moved his tents to a place near Sodom and settled among the cities of the plain. But the people of this area were extremely wicked and constantly sinned against the Lord. After Lot had gone, the Lord said to Abram, look, as far as you can see in every direction, north and south, east and west, I am giving all this land as far as you can see to you and your descendants as a permanent possession. And I will give you so many descendants that, like the dust of the earth, they cannot be counted. Go and walk through the land in every direction, for I am giving it to you. So Abram moved his camp to Hebron and settled near the oak before belonging to Mamre. Settled near the oak grove belonging to Mamre. I gotta do some, I'm gonna circle some of these words. Is it Ai, Mamre? There he built another altar to the Lord. God is like, look, east, west, north, south, walk around, all of it is yours, right? Believers, those who have faith in the Most High, don't argue, don't tit for tat over, oh, this is mine, this is yours, this is that. Just let the disputes fall off of you. God says, you give it up, you can have it all, right? Salute to what's the brother name? TD Jakes. If you can give it up, you can have it all. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I love reading about Abraham and his origins and just his mindset. It's such a just a blessing that we even have that we're here today to even be able to read the Bible. It's a blessing to even be able to read and to see all the wisdom and the lessons, from the brother, and just how blessed he was, and how, as a believer in Jesus Christ, we become children of Abraham and receive some of those same blessings. And I can tell you just from my own life, just feeling blessed tremendously in ways I can't even explain. And you just kind of feel it in your inner spirit. There's this sense of just inner bliss, bliss, bless, right? So I kind of went a little bit far out. So too close to the edge. Oh, I have some good little commentaries here. This is from the New Living Translation, the Men's Study Bible, Every Man's Bible. Abraham didn't stop to ask directions. Genesis 12, 1 through 9. God gave Abraham an unusual assignment. Leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family and go to the land that I will show you. I kind of felt like that when you join the military, which is not for everybody, but sometimes when you're in your native place or your place of origin, your place of birth, sometimes your blessings are not just limited to that region. Sometimes you got to branch out. Sometimes you got to go out and explore. Sometimes you got to adventure and leave your comfort zone. When I left Detroit, a lot of people stayed in Detroit. I could go back and it's good in some ways, but it can be, everything isn't about me. What works for them is cool, but you know, um, you can just go back when you leave your hometown, and maybe you went to the military, or maybe you went to college, or maybe you went and got another job offer out somewhere outside of your home country or your home city. And when you go back, you ever had that feeling like, man, some things just never change, right? Some people just never left. And I'm not saying that people who didn't leave didn't prosper. People do different things, but then sometimes you go back and you just get this kind of felt sense like, man, a lot of these dudes are still having some of the same conversations. They're doing some of the same things. They're still out there banging, you know, and sometimes your blessings are waiting for you outside of your comfort zone. That's what comes up for me when I think about many things come up with Abraham, but sometimes what you're looking for in life and that adventure, sort of like that, just that sense of just prosperity and change, it requires you to leave your comfort zone. Sometimes you got to leave your home of origin. I never thought I was going to ever leave Detroit. You have everything there. You got your creature comforts. You got your Coney Island. You got your chili cheese fries, your chili cheese dogs. I didn't think it's like everybody, a lot of times, just they don't want to leave Detroit. It's just such a creature comfort. Things are affordable. Yeah, you got dangerous areas you want to stay away from, but it's just sometimes your hometown is just so comfortable. You're just like, man, I don't ever want to leave. But sometimes God pushes you beyond your boundaries of your sort of comfort, so that way you can tap into greater prosperity, greater blessings, not only for you but for your family, even your friends. And when I left, because I was just against going to the military, I was just very much comfortable. But when I left, it just opened up so many doors for me, for my children, for my friends, inspiring other people who didn't really want to leave. God gave Abraham an unusual assignment. Leave your native country, your relatives. Sometimes you got to leave your relatives. As much as we love our families, sometimes your families can block your blessings. Don't leave, girl. Don't leave us. Come on, bro. Don't leave. Stay here. Be like here with us. Sometimes you gotta leave your relatives. What God tell them? Leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land that I will show you. Genesis 12:1. Abraham, who was going by the name of Abram at the time, didn't wait around for God to give him a detailed map and itinerary. And back then, they didn't have a GPS technology to pinpoint their location. Instead, Abraham told his wife and family to pack up and hit the road without asking for further directions. Abram departed as the Lord had instructed. Genesis 12:4. For centuries, women have been criticizing men who set out on a trip without consulting a map and refusing to stop and ask for help. Is it possible that this near universal male trait is ancient Abraham's legacy to modern man? Perhaps, but there's a bigger message to be found by examining Abraham's travel habits. More than anything else, he took God at his word. He believed God and he based his life on that belief. That's what all God is asking us for. Take him at his word. Trust his word. Believe God. That's why the writer of the New Testament book of Hebrew praises Abraham as a model of faith. It was by faith that Abraham obeyed when God called him to leave home and go to another land that God would give him as in his inheritance. He went without knowing where he was going. Hebrews 11:8. That doesn't mean women are always wrong when they ask men if they know where they're going, but there may be times in a man's life where he must follow God and into uncharted territory. Man, I love that. Too close to the edge. A lot of men today like to live on the edge, tired of routine and bored with the seat belted culture. They seek out the daring, the daunting, the dangerous. Lot would have felt right at home with guys like this. But when he applied this attitude to his spiritual life, he paid a tremendous price. Lot grew up in the care of his grandfather Terah after his father died. When Terah moved his family to Haran, Lot went along, and when Abraham and Sarah left for the promised land, Lot accompanied them. Genesis 11:28, 31, 12, 4. Both Lot and Abraham prospered along the way, and soon Abraham had to say to his nephew, in essence, boy, this town ain't big enough for the both of us. Which way do you want to go? 13:8 through 9. Lot looked over his options, then took his livestock in the direction of a town named Sodom. Yes, that's Sodom, as in Sodom and Gomorrah. We notice a sad progression in Lot's fascination with living on the edge. At first, he lived in tents outside the city. Then he owns a house inside the city walls. And before we know it, we see him sitting at the entrance to the city, 19:1, an indication of Lot's importance and high status in the community. Lot seems to have embraced Sodom's evil culture, even though the people of this area were extremely wicked and constantly sinned against the Lord, 13:13. Eventually, God decided to put an end to Sodom. He sent two angels to drag Lot and his family out of the doomed city. Lot tried to warn his two future sons in laws of the peril, but they laughed at him and assumed he was joking. As 0 hour approached, Lot hesitated and tried to delay his departure. Finally, the angels literally grabbed his wrist and forced him to leave, along with his wife and two daughters. And even when the angels told him to flee to the mountains, Lot tried to negotiate a better deal. I cannot go to the mountains. Disaster would catch up to me there. See, there is a small village nearby. Please let me go there instead. 19, chapter 19, verse 19 through 20. During their flight, Lot's wife disobeyed the angel's instructions and looked back at the home they were leaving. Her refusal to let go of her life in sinful Sodom was instantly and severely punished as God turned her into a pillar of salt. 19:26. Soon after Sodom and Gomorrah went up in smoke, Lot took his two daughters to live in a cave. Shortly thereafter, the girls decided to carry on the family line, but with no other men around. They faithlessly chose to get Lot drunk and into bed with each of them. You didn't think the Bible would mention incest. The girls gave birth to illegitimate sons who founded two nations, Moab and Ammon, which would ultimately harass Israel for centuries to come. That's what can happen when you live too fast and too dangerously. And keep in mind that Lot was a believer. Peter calls him a righteous man who was sick of the shameful immorality of the wicked around him. 2 Peter 2:7. Even a man like Lot can be seduced by the flash and the excitement of living on the edge. But beware, the drop off may lie closer than you think. Yeah, so much here. God bless you guys. I pray that God blesses you as he blessed Abraham, and that this message reaches who is essentially meant to reach, and that sometimes leaving your comfort zone, even if it's leaving your neighborhood, leaving your school, leaving your job, sometimes you got to leave family behind, doesn't mean there isn't a blessing on the other side for you. All right. God bless you guys.